So 5-star Yangyang's kit description or her kit information just dropped a few hours ago, and she seems to be like Augusta from a playstyle perspective because you always need to consume stacks to generate another one. But from a kit design perspective, she's very similar to Cartethia because you always need to consume negative status stacks, which is in this case Havoc Bane, before she can increase her damage. And you also need to apply Havoc Bane from multiple sources before she can drastically increase her damage, which makes her highly dependent on Chisa, just like all the new negative status DPS that have been released very recently. So in today's video, I'm going to take you through the kit description to give you an idea of what you should expect before she drops in the game so that you can decide if she's worth pulling or not. Keep in mind that more detailed information like how her different team compositions perform, best weapons, will be posted after her release, and I'll also upload some showcases comparing her damage to Frolova to see the level of power creep. But for now, let's see what her kit has to offer, and I'll also share my opinions about her kit design and some things that I'm not really comfortable with. For her combat roles, she's a main damage dealer, she does heavy attack damage, applies Havoc Bane but still needs Havoc Bane, and she offers crowd control capabilities, which is Thraction. Now, I've already gone through everything right here. That is everything that is related to her gameplay. So what I'm going to do is that instead of going through all of these things one after the other, I'm just going to summarize everything using the live stream footage that we had a few days ago. Now, Yangyang is a DPS unit that does not need to regenerate forte stacks like most characters in the game, which is why I compared her to Augusta at the beginning, because with Augusta, you always need to consume her purple stacks to be able to regenerate the orange ones or ascendancy stacks. 5-star Yangyang works in a similar way. She'll always have forte stacks for you to consume, and the way that you consume these forte stacks is by doing basic attacks, and the basic attacks needs to hit the enemy. But her basic attacks are different depending on the mode that she's in. So she has two modes. She has the Azure Stance mode, and then she has the Feather Stance mode. Each mode does different things, which modifies her basic attacks and also some enhanced skills that she can use. So let's take a look at this clip here, which can make things much easier for you guys to understand. In her default state, she'll be in the Azure Stance mode. So right here, you guys can see that these are the basic attacks of the Azure Stance mode. And after the 4 basic attacks are complete, where they hit an enemy, she's going to gain an enhanced skill, which we can call Azure Stance Enhanced Skill for simplicity. And this is exactly how the enhanced skill looks like. Let me show you guys again. There we go. That's exactly how the Azure Stance Enhanced Skill looks like. Now, once you use the Azure Stance Enhanced Skill, she transitions into the Feather Stance mode. Now, in this mode, you can see that her basic attacks have changed and they look more elegant compared to the first one. Now, these basic attacks also consist of 4 basic attacks, and when they are done, she'll also unlock a new skill or a new enhanced skill, which we can call Feather Stance Enhanced Skill for simplicity. That's not exactly how the name is in the kit description, but I just don't want you guys to be confused about how Kura decides to name some skills in her kit description. Now, once the basic attacks or the more elegant basic attacks in the Feather Stance mode are completed, she will unlock a new enhanced skill as I mentioned earlier, and using this enhanced skill right here, where she kind of like pierces the enemy. Now, each of these enhanced skills that she uses will give her a new stack, and for the sake of simplicity, let's just call these stacks blue stacks. Now, per the footage that I showed you guys, we have used 2 enhanced skills, so that means she has 2 blue stacks. And once she has 2 blue stacks, you can now do damage from her forte circuit, which is basically holding your basic attack button or using a heavy attack. So right after holding her basic attack button, she'll perform this attack right here, which looks more like a cyclone that encircles the enemy and does high damage. However, this damage right here is just one of the damage that she can do from her forte circuit. The damage changes based on the state that she's in. So if you guys remember, the first time we were in the Azure Stance state, and then she used her enhanced skill to go into the Feather Stance state. And then she did basic attacks and used an enhanced skill, and then she transitioned into the Azure Stance state. Now, if you decide to use the heavy attack in the Azure Stance state, this is exactly the attack that she's going to do. However, if you decide to use her heavy attack from her forte circuit while she's in the feather stance state, that is exactly when she's going to use this attack right here, which looks really flashy. So to summarize everything that I've said so far, she has basic attacks, and those basic attacks are modified based on her stance or mode that she's in. And also her forte circuit, or the damage from her forte circuit, also changes based on the stance that she's in. Keep in mind that all the enhanced skills that she used to get those blue stacks consume Havoc Bane to give you those blue forte stacks. And you can always switch her mode anytime you want by just doing basic attacks and using her skill. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that every time you do a basic attack, a skill will be available to you. And keep in mind that this is not the enhanced skill. The normal skill that is available after a basic attack just helps her transition between both modes. However, it's only the enhanced skill that helps her transition into another mode and also helps her generate one blue stack to use her forte circuit. Now let's get into her passives, Ultra skill, and I'll also cover her team options. Her Ultra skill will do high damage with a 300% increased damage multiplier, and all resonators in the team other than her will gain a 20% damage amplification for Havoc damage. This Ultra skill is mainly meant for Chisa to be able to do more damage, because right after her outro, or right after she's done doing damage, her Ultra skill will most certainly be given to Chisa. Now for her first inherent skill, it says when a target has 1 to 3 stacks of Havoc Bane, each stack of Havoc Bane amplifies the damage from Yangyang by 10% up to 30%. But when a target has 4 to 6 stacks of Havoc Bane, each stack of Havoc Bane amplifies the damage from Yangyang by 12% up to 36%. For the second inherent skill, her Resonance Liberation, which is just a nuke that scales off heavy attack damage, raises the Havoc Bane stacks on the target to its maximum. This is basically the same thing that Chisa's Ultra skill does by raising negative status stacks to their maximum amount on an enemy. When Resonators inflict Havoc Bane, Yangyang gains 1 stack of Windbound, and Windbound can be gained once every second, stacking up to 6 times. When Windbound stacks up to 6 times, it is going to be removed by Yangyang and grant her the ability to do an additional damage and apply 6 stacks of Havoc Bane when she uses any of the enhanced skills that we talked about earlier. The last passive that is really important, which we need to look at, is this one right here called Feathered Oath. When nearby resonators in the team apply Havoc Bane to a target, Yangyang gains 1 stack of Feathered Oath for 4 seconds. Feathered Oath can be gained once every 1 second, stacking up to 6 times. While Yangyang is the active resonator in the team, each stack increases the crit damage of Heavy Attack, Azure Sword Stance, Heavy Attack, Feather Sword Stance, which is the different heavy attacks that I took you guys through earlier, Meta Attack, Feather Fall, Basic Attack, Havoc in Bloom, and keep in mind that Havoc in Bloom is just a combo that she does in addition to the Heavy Attack, Feather Sword Stance, which scales off heavy attack damage. So essentially what this passive is saying is that you always need to have 6 Havoc Bane on the enemy before you can gain that 160% crit damage that applies to her main damage sources. And that's pretty much everything you guys need to know about 5-star Yangyang's kit description or kit design. Now let's move on to the teams that you can play with Yangyang, and after that we'll cover the weapons that you can use. Now 5-star Yangyang's best team that she'll have upon her release, before we get Sui Sui, who's most likely going to be her best in slot sustained unit, will be Chisa, Yuno, and Yangyang. And the reason why I'm saying this is because Yuno has the highest heavy attack damage amplification in the game, which is 50% that she can provide to Yangyang, but other sub DPS units in the game, like Mortefi, can only provide up to 38%. Now, Yuno's fuel time isn't actually the shortest compared to Mortefi, but Yuno compensates that with high damage contribution since her damage is actually really good. This is going to be the best team for 5-star Yangyang per my first impressions. The second best team is going to be Chisa, Mortefi, and Yangyang. As I mentioned earlier, Mortefi has a really fast fuel time, and it can be even faster if you incorporate some quick swap or animation cancelling to speed up his rotation. And most importantly, he can use Static Mist, which provides an attack buff for Yangyang or 5-star Yangyang. The second best team is going to be Chisa, Rebecca, and 5-star Yangyang. Now, Rebecca's Ultra skill is a bit weird because it's really made for Lucy, and without Lucy, you're going to get the damage amplification from her Ultra skill, but it's going to be really gradual, which is why it's going to be the third best team for 5-star Yangyang. So these are the 3 teams that I recommend for anyone if you're going to be pulling for 5-star Yangyang. But there's a good chance that Electro Rover will be able to provide damage amplification for Yangyang. It could be an all damage amplification that is specifically made for all negative status DPS in the game, because we don't actually have a universal sub DPS unit for negative status DPS characters in the game. So my guess is that Electro Rover is going to fulfill that role, and if she does, or if he does, depending on who you use on your account, whether it's male or female, they are going to have synergy with 5-star Yangyang. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys watching might probably be saying, I don't have Chisa on my account. Can I use Showkeeper or Monye? Yes, you can, but keep in mind that you'll be losing a lot of damage amplification and a lot of crit damage from the passives that we looked at earlier. So it's not something that I really recommend, but I'll test it anyway and give you the calculations compared to a best in slot team in her dedicated guide video, so be sure to look forward to it. Now let's get into her weapons. Swords, there we go. So if you cannot afford her signature weapon, your first priority should be Emerald Sentence, which is Choyan's signature weapon. It says right here that casting an echo skill within 10 seconds after casting an intro skill or doing basic attacks grants 1 stack of Bamboo Cleaver, which grants 30% heavy attack damage bonus to the wielder. So essentially what you need to do is cast her echo skill right after an intro skill, and you'll be able to benefit from the 30% heavy attack damage bonus. I'll be more specific in the part of her rotation that you need to cast her echo skill to gain this 30% heavy attack damage bonus, because if you're not careful, it's going to run out before you can do the highest damage in her kit design. And that's pretty much every 5-star sword in the game that can provide heavy attack damage bonus with an easily accessible passive. So the second priority, if you don't have Choyan's signature weapon, is to use Emerald of Genesis, and it's actually very easy for you to get all the attack buff from the passive because of the enhanced skills that Yangyang can use, which I covered earlier. Aside from those, I don't really recommend any 4-star weapon because 4-star weapons really suck in this game, to be honest. Like this one right here, which is basically made for any negative status sword user in the game, because you just need to apply negative status for the wielder to gain an attack buff. But if you want to preserve your sanity, just don't use it. Stick to Emerald of Genesis and you should be fine. My overall opinion about her kit description is that I think she's going to be a really fun character to use or to play, because of the different states that she has, which influences or determines the kind of forte attacks that she can use. But I'm not really fond of how she needs to attack an enemy or hit an enemy before she can consume the stacks and gain the enhanced skill. Because if you're up against enemies that move around a lot, you're going to have trouble doing damage to them to consume those stacks, which also lets all your buffs that you stacked up like ultra buffs run out pretty quickly before she can do damage. And I'm also a bit disappointed that I didn't see anything related to anti-interruption in her kit description, because the flashy forte attack from her forte circuit in the further sword stance that I showed you guys earlier is actually pretty long and makes you very vulnerable to attacks that can interrupt you. So I think they're going to be doing the same thing that they usually do, where they put anti-interruption in her sequences, which is S1 to be specific, for most characters in the game. It's not something that I'm really happy about, but it's just what it is. So that'll be all for this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. If you're interested in a free account review, or if you need any help with Withering Waves, be sure to join our Discord community in the pinned comment below. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.